She didn't scream it. She didn't whisper it. She said it the way someone speaks a line they've rehearsed in front of a mirror. I stood there with my hand raised, hovering over the curve of her shoulder, and in that moment, I realized I hadn't touched my wife in 47 days. Not by accident fingers brushing, not a knee against hers on the couch, not even a half-asleep embrace in the dark. Nothing. 47 days. She was wearing the navy hoodie I bought her last Christmas. Her hair was wet, and she smelled like someone else's cologne, not mine. I took a step back not because I was angry, but because I suddenly felt like I was trespassing, like I had wandered into a stranger's house by mistake. The walls were still beige. The kitchen tile was still chipped. In the living room, there was still the same oil stain from the day I spilled pad thai 3 years ago. But the woman in front of me, no. This was no longer the person who once fell asleep in my lap watching nature documentaries. She turned around as if nothing had happened and opened the fridge. "We're out of oat milk," she said. "Can you pick some up tomorrow?" I didn't answer, because that was the moment her phone screen lit up on the counter. A message preview. "Still thinking about this morning. You're unreal." Oh, name just a heart emoji. She didn't notice that I read it. She didn't even notice that I was still standing there. I walked out of the house without saying a word. Past the mailbox I painted for her birthday. Past the car she always told me not to park too close to the hedge. I walked until my legs burned and my throat tightened. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't ask why. The next morning, she posted a photo of her coffee on Instagram with the caption, "New beginnings." I hadn't left yet, but she already had. That was the day I stopped waiting for her to come back and started preparing her ending. Because if she thought, "Don't touch me right now," was a boundary, she had no idea what I was capable of once I stopped begging to be loved. She didn't knock on the guest room door that night. I waited like a fool. I listened for footsteps, for the soft creak of the hallway floor, for any sign that she cared I wasn't beside her. Nothing. Just silence, heavy and humiliating. At 2:14 a.m., I opened my phone and scrolled through our old messages, back when everything hadn't yet turned robotic. Her "I love yous" back then were unprompted. Now, they didn't come at all. I still remember one message from 2 years ago. "You make the world less sharp." That version of her was gone, and whoever remained was sharper than ever, cold, surgical, as if everything was being dissected without anesthesia, and I was the experiment. The next morning, she was humming in the kitchen, actually humming a pop song, cheerful. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, listening, wondering if I had imagined the night before. Then her phone vibrated. Not once, not twice, 5 times. I counted. By the 3rd ring, she laughed. Quietly, but she laughed. Not the way we used to laugh at dumb rom-coms or our failed attempts at salsa dancing. This laugh was different, careless, like someone had reached inside and twisted something sacred. And that's when it stopped being about jealousy. It became about truth. I didn't confront her. That would have made me just another obstacle in her day. Instead, I started documenting. I saved screenshots, took photos of her screen when her phone lit up, synced her calendar to my tablet when she wasn't looking. I didn't know yet what I was looking for, but I knew I needed proof. Not for court, not even for friends. I needed to believe I wasn't losing my mind. The next Friday, she told me she was going to an art class downtown, a 3-hour watercolor workshop. I offered to drive her. She smiled too sweetly and said, "No need, babe. You'd be bored out of your mind." Babe, a word she hadn't used for me in months. It landed like acid. So I followed her. I waited 30 minutes after she left, then got in my car, kept my distance, blended into traffic until she pulled into the side parking lot of a boutique hotel called White Fern. I watched from across the street as she stepped out of the car. She wasn't carrying paint or brushes. She was carrying lingerie. I recognized the small red bag from the boutique she used to avoid, said it was too flashy. A man in a charcoal blazer opened the door for her before she even knocked. He didn't look like someone she'd met last week. He looked like someone who already knew the color of her bedroom walls. I didn't go inside. I didn't make a scene. I just took the photo. One single photo of them together at the door. Her smiling the way she hadn't smiled at me in 2 years. That image burned itself into my skull. And at the same time, It was saved to 3 different cloud accounts in case I ever doubted my memory or needed to prove I wasn't insane. When she came home later that night, her hair still damp, she looked at me sitting at the dining table as if I were a misplaced decoration. "How was your class?" I asked calmly. "Very expressive," she said, carefully placing her phone down. "We painted roses." I looked her straight in the eyes and replied, "Funny, you came back without your paintbrush." For a second, I thought her expression cracked. "Just a second," she said. Then she smiled, turned away, and added, "You're reading into things again." I didn't respond. I simply stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out. Not forever. Just long enough to make her think maybe I was done trying. The next day, she cried. Not in front of me, of course not. But I saw it on the security footage from the camera I'd installed outside the house 2 weeks earlier and forgotten to mention. She stood on the porch, staring down the driveway, wiping her eyes like someone who had just realized the foundation beneath her was crumbling. She had no idea this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because if I couldn't get the truth, I would force her to face it herself, piece by piece. And when I was finished, she wouldn't be humming anymore. I didn't expose her after the hotel photo. That would have been an instinctive move, slamming the truth on the table and demanding explanations. But I no longer cared for explanations. I wanted her to reveal herself. I wanted to see her unravel, not out of cruelty, but because after years of shrinking myself to fit her expectations, I needed to see what would happen when I stopped holding everything together. So I began a game. Quiet, precise, controlled. And she didn't even know she was playing. The first thing I did was cancel the automatic grocery orders. Small, almost invisible. But on the 3rd day, she opened the fridge and asked, "Did you forget to order from Instacart?" I shrugged. Maybe. That evening, she ate dry cereal in silence. The first crack. Then I stopped replying to her messages immediately. Nothing dramatic, just hours. Sometimes a whole day's delay. I was polite, never cold. "Sorry, I was busy. Just saw your message." She started asking, "Are we okay?" I would answer vaguely, "Just tired." But the real shift happened when I stopped asking her anything. No "how was your day?" No "what's for dinner?" I became a mirror, reflecting the energy she gave. And when she realized the spotlight was no longer on her, she began to flicker, desperately seeking a reaction. She started trying again, putting on lipstick for dinner, sitting with me on the couch to watch documentaries, though constantly scrolling her phone, even suggesting a weekend trip together to reconnect. That's when I realized she felt it. The emptiness that appeared when I stepped out of the role of emotionally available husband. The one who forgave, who asked, who tried, the one who soothed her guilt. He was gone, and without him, she didn't know who she was herself. But the best move was the one she didn't expect. I printed the hotel photo, not digitally. I ordered a matte print and placed it in an empty living room card. No text, just the image. I waited for the perfect moment. It came a week later, when she said she was going to a colleague's baby shower. She dressed up, wore perfume she hadn't touched in months, and rushed out. I put the envelope in her makeup drawer. The second layer, not hidden just somewhere she would find it alone. I didn't want a scene. I wanted to wait. That same day, I packed a bag and drove 3 hours north to my cousin Warren's cabin. No notes left behind. Phone not turned off. I simply became unreachable. I wanted her to be with it. With that image of herself, walking into a hotel room with a man whose name I didn't even need to know. When I reached the cabin, I turned off my phone. No laptop, no distractions, just firewood, silence, and time to think. 2 full days offline, letting her spiral. I imagined her pacing the house, checking voicemail, maybe calling my colleagues. Imagined the moment she found the envelope, opened it, saw herself. Not a selfie, not something filterable or explainable, a raw piece of proof. When I turned my phone back on, there were 12 missed calls and 6 messages. The first for cautious, "Hi, just checking in. Where are you?" Then, "Did you go through my things?" And the last one, "Please call me." I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. I came home as if nothing had happened. She stood in the doorway barefoot, looking like someone who hadn't slept. Eyes red, but she wasn't crying. She never cried in front of me. Why did you leave the photo like that? She asked quietly. I walked past, hung my jacket, and said, you always said you hated surprises. I thought this one wouldn't disappoint. She followed me into the kitchen, asking questions I didn't answer. How long have you known? Were you watching me? Will you tell anyone? There was no fear of me in her voice, only fear of what comes next. There's nothing to tell, I said calmly. You already lived it. And I left her standing there. That night, she tried to regain control, cooked dinner, lit candles, set the table for two as if ritual could resurrect something long dead. You knew for a while, she said without asking. Since you started saying you were tired, yet always came back with washed hair and a silent phone. She flinched. Not sharply, barely noticeable, but I saw the crack. I thought I could control it, that it would stay small. She didn't even call it betrayal, as if the word would make it real. Later, I found her in the walk-in closet on the floor, knees drawn up, in front of a box of my old letters. She hadn't opened them, just stared. I didn't want war, she said. I didn't think it would hurt you this much. And then I understood. She convinced herself that silence is not cruelty, that betrayal without a scream isn't betrayal, that if no dishes are broken, there's no harm. When did you stop believing I mattered? I asked. She didn't answer at once, then whispered, I just wanted to feel wanted. It didn't hit. The scariest part was how little it hurt anymore. The next day, I rented an apartment, 1 bedroom, corner unit, no shared walls, transferred half of our shared savings and left an envelope on her pillow. This is what justice looks like. I left quietly. No slamming, no scenes. Just the click of the door handle, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was leaving home. I felt like I was entering it. 6 months passed. I never saw her again. Not online, not by chance. Nowhere. I didn't hate her. I thought I would, but hatred never came. Instead, there was silence. And in that silence, I heard myself again. I started painting again. Poorly. The sky came out like melted sherbet. The trees too many branches. But I painted not for judgment. I painted for joy. One day, I returned to that same lake in Montana. Not for memories. To prove to myself I could stand there without her. I left a small canvas and a note on a bench. Who you were isn't a prison. You can leave when you're ready. I don't know who found it. Perhaps someone who needed it. I didn't wait for apologies. Because I had closed this story myself. And it was the quietest, the most peaceful, and the most final farewell of my life.